This fall, Sterling Heights residents will have a chance to shape the future of their city. On Tuesday, November 5th, Sterling Heights voters will consider the Safe Streets Millage proposal. This proposal, if approved, allows the city to levy up to 2.5 mills for 6 years for police and fire protection and local street improvements. In order to educate the public on safe streets, let's take a closer look at the reasons for the proposal and the impact it will have on the Sterling Heights community if it passes or fails. By any measure, the City of Sterling Heights has established itself as a premier Michigan municipality during its nearly 45-year existence. Renowned for quality public services delivered at a low cost to taxpayers, the city's efficiency-based operating model has worked well. Unfortunately, the last 6 years have proven to be the most financially challenging in the city's history. The combination of an unprecedented decline in property values, cuts in state revenue sharing, and the elimination of manufacturing personal property taxes have eroded the city's revenues at an alarming rate. The city has lost $21 million in property taxes and $46 million in lost tax revenue growth over the past 6 years. Tax revenues have fallen to their lowest level since 2005, as the city's total tax base has decreased by 37.1% to its lowest level in 15 years. The state has reduced its funding to the city by $33.1 million, or 22.6% since 2002, due to revenue sharing cuts. The city has also lost $4 million for street repairs due to lower state gas tax funding. Furthermore, the state has eliminated the manufacturing personal property tax starting in 2016, which will result in an additional $13 million loss to city revenues. The city has responded to these financial challenges proactively with the development and implementation of a financial plan which focused on cutting expenditures while preserving core public services, particularly police and fire protection. The city has achieved $33 million in operational savings to date, as spending is now the lowest in 10 years and the lowest in 18 years on an inflation-adjusted basis. The city has had to eliminate 201 full-time employees, reducing staffing back to 1970s levels. The employee per resident ratio has decreased by 44%, saving $16 million annually. The city has worked hard to minimize the reductions to police and fire staffing. Public safety staffing has declined by only 20% compared to a 50% reduction in all other departments. Staffing levels continue to be the lowest of any other comparable city in the state and lower than 90% of cities across the country. Concessionary bargaining with employee labor unions has also yielded substantial savings both in the short term, wages and benefits, and long term, pension and retiree medical. Wages and benefits have been cut by 15%, and fixed pensions and retiree medical costs have been reduced for all employees and eliminated for new hires. As a result of the continued cost cutting and the efficient delivery of services, the city's tax rate remains very low. In fact, our tax rate is lower than over 90% of cities in the state and is at least 2.5 mills lower than any city in Macomb County. Due to property assessment declines, residential tax bills today remain lower than amounts paid back in 2002. In fact, the average total tax bill has gone down $449, or 16%, in just the past 6 years. While cost-cutting and employee concessions have both had a positive impact on the city's finances, it has not been enough. Due to declining revenues, the city's general fund reserves have fallen by $14.5 million to the lowest level in over 20 years. Further use of reserves will negatively impact the city's strong bond rating. The city's financial plan has been successful, but also not without consequences. We have had to continue to limit capital expenditures, including local street repairs, but this short-term savings merely delays the need to replace critical infrastructure, technology, equipment, and vehicles necessary for essential public safety services. While the city has maintained core public services, the ability to function at previous levels has been severely compromised. Examples include investment in infrastructure. During this economic downturn, the city's ability to invest in street repairs has been seriously limited. This constraint on investment came at a time when the demand for repairs to the infrastructure was increasing. Having gone 6 years without adequate resources has increased the need to a critical level. If the city does not secure a reliable, sustained source of revenue for investment in infrastructure, the long-term damage to the quality of life for residents may be irreparable. Investment in equipment. Unfortunately, the city has had to cut funding for capital while the city's fleet of police and fire vehicles continues to age and is in critical need of replacement. The need is equally critical for the DPW fleet and equipment. Without adequate equipment, the effectiveness of police, fire, and DPW services are compromised. Investment in technology. The city's efficiency has been based on a sustained, long-term commitment to investment in technology. These efficiencies are no longer sustainable unless the city is able to continue with its technology plan, an objective that is not possible under the current financial situation. City programming and services. As noted, the city's financial plan was premised on preserving core public services, especially police and fire protection. However, this commitment has forced the city to make some very difficult choices with respect to programming and services in non-public safety areas. The reductions, especially in parks and recreation and the library, do impact the quality of life. If the community is going to remain a premier destination for families and residents of all ages, quality of life services must be preserved long-term. Reductions in police and fire personnel. While the number of police and fire personnel has been reduced over the past 6 years, most street-level services have been maintained. Unfortunately, in the absence of partially recovering lost revenues, the city cannot sustain police and fire personnel at current levels for the foreseeable future, as the two departments account for the majority of the city's budget. The city is at a critical point in its history. While much has been accomplished during this crisis to place the city on a better financial foundation for the future, the continuing structural imbalance must be closed by recovering lost revenue for the city to maintain its status as a full-service, effective, and efficient municipality. This action will not only preserve excellent police and fire services, but equally important, provide for direct reinvestment in road infrastructure. By eliminating the need to further reduce services, the city will also be able to focus on long-range planning necessary to ensure quality public works, library, parks and recreation, economic development, and other community-oriented services important to our future success. As we look to the future, unfortunately, we see revenues remaining at historic lows. The state has eliminated the manufacturing personal property tax, which accounts for 15% of city tax revenues. The city's tax base has now declined to its lowest level in 15 years. Even as values do begin to rebound, the city is limited to only an inflationary adjustment going forward, so that the tax losses are permanent. As a result, further service reductions will be needed to balance the budget unless a portion of lost revenues is recovered. The ballot question affords the residents of this community an opportunity to weigh in on the fundamental question of what type of municipality Sterling Heights will be for the next stage of its life cycle. Since the city's inception back in 1968, the police and fire departments have offered residents highly responsive and professional services. While following the motto to serve and protect, each department has developed a strong reputation and achieved acclaim for fast response times, caring service, and favorable results that have made Sterling Heights Police and Fire Services the finest in Michigan. While these services have become the norm, it is clear that, without partial recovery of lost revenue, the model that has sustained the city for the first 45 years of its existence will no longer be sustainable. By approving the dedicated millage, the city will have the finances to not only maintain quality public safety services and rebuild the city's road infrastructure, but also to continue to provide excellent quality of life services. Over the course of the city's history, these high-quality services have made Sterling Heights a great community to live, work, and play. Without the recovery of a portion of lost tax revenue, the city will need to eliminate an additional 65 full-time positions. Because general employee positions have already been reduced by 50%, the 65 position reductions will have to come from the ranks of the Sterling Heights Police and Fire. It would be necessary to eliminate 45 sworn police officers and 20 firefighters. This reduced staffing level will require the police department to operate in a reactive mode rather than a proactive mode. Reductions in the department's youth, detective, narcotics, traffic safety, accident prevention, and other specialized bureaus will fundamentally change the scope of available police services. Furthermore, a reduction of 20 firefighters would result in the closure of a fire station, the brownout of another station, and the loss of staffing for rescue and ladder equipment that would significantly impact response times. In addition, the city would fall further behind on critical public safety equipment replacements, including fire engines, police vehicles, computer equipment, and other technology improvements. As the city's local street system ages, there are more and more demands for increased street maintenance and repairs. While the city has done a good job in funding these repairs in the past, it no longer has the funding to make needed improvements. State gas tax revenues have fallen, and the general fund no longer has the ability to subsidize the road funds. By increasing funding now, we can prevent more costly repairs in the future, improve the appearance of our neighborhoods, and better maintain property values. If the Safe Streets proposal is approved by voters on November 5th, the average homeowner will see an increase of $157 annually, or $13 per month, in their total property tax bill. However, the average tax bill will still be $292, or 10.6% lower than it was back in 2007. The city will continue to have one of the lowest millage rates in the state and the lowest of any city in Macomb County. Sterling Heights residents have historically expressed a high degree of satisfaction with the public services delivered by their city government. Unfortunately, the city can no longer guarantee that these services will be maintained at previous levels due to the loss of substantial revenues. Further cuts, if necessary, will be severe and impact residents. Safe Streets is an opportunity for our residents to provide direct input on the critical question of what level of public services will be delivered going forward. Take the opportunity on November 5th to impact the future of your community. Voters seeking information on the city's Safe Streets proposal can visit the city's official website, sterling-heights.net, or call Community Relations at 446-2470.